Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be going through the topic of settlement. So that is units 1.5 till 1.7. So the first subtopic we're going to look at are settlements and service provision, and one of the things you need to know in this topic are the types of settlements that exist. So the first one are nucleated settlements, and this is where houses and buildings are clustered around a central feature. So this central feature can be a range of things. It could be a junction of a road like you can see in this diagram here, and it can also be like a church, a market, a port, or anything else that is of significance in the settlement. So the next type of settlement you need to know is dispersed, and this is where houses are spread across a large area of land. Across a large area of land. And these settlements tend to be the ones that are more sparsely populated, as there are like fewer houses in a cluster. So the final type of settlement you need to know is linear, and these are where houses line up along a linear feature. And this feature could be something like a river or a road, which is of significance again to the settlement and which will help them to increase their overall income. Okay, so those are the types of settlements, and we're going to go into some key terminology now that you will need for the rest of the topic. So the site of a settlement is the land on which the site is built upon. Alright, and the situation is the position of a settlement in relation to its surrounding area. Okay, and the sphere of influence is the area that a settlement serves, and this sphere of influence will vary depending on how big the settlement is and the services that it provides. Sorry, that is supposed to be served. Alright, and the range is the maximum distance people will travel to obtain a good or service. Alright, and then finally the threshold population is the minimum amount of people in a settlement to support a service. Alright, so those are all the definitions you need to know for this part of the video. So now we're going to be looking at the factors affecting the size and the function of a settlement. So the first thing that could affect the size and function is the climate that it's found in. And this is because if it's a rainy climate, it might be more suitable for agriculture and grazing cattle and sheep, and therefore it'll increase the agricultural produce in the settlement. So the next factor is raw materials. And by these I mean, so say for example, aluminum could be used for manufacturing aircraft. So if there's a lot of aluminum found in a certain area, then that area may be designated for the manufacturing of aircraft and for factories where the manufacturing can take place. Another factor is fertile land, and this quite nicely links with climate, because if the land is fertile, then it can be used primarily for agriculture, and that would be like the main service of the settlement. And finally, location. So if the settlement is located near a feature like a river or some sort of road or junction, then its goods and services can be easily transported. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the settlement hierarchy. You do not need to know a lot about this, but what you need to know is that larger settlements will be at the top of the pyramid and lower settlements will be at the bottoms. For example, a megacity houses over 10 million people, so that would be at the very top. However, an isolated home may only house like a family of 3 or 4, so it will be at the base of the pyramid. Okay, so now we're going to be going into urban settlements and the land zoning in cities. So this is the Burgess concentric model. And basically what this is the general structure of a city. So each city will contain a core, an inner city ring, a suburban ring, and an urban fringe. Just keep in mind that this model is not representative of every city, and not every city fits this model, but it's just a general model based on how most cities are structured. So for each of the different land zones, you need to know the characteristics of each of them. So the central core contains the central business district, which can be abbreviated as CBD. CBD. And this central business district is where all the financial and commercial activities of a settlement takes place, or a city. The next feature is the convergence of public transport. So this could be, for example, this could be like metro lines converging all within the central core. So you could maybe use the London Underground as an example, where all the different lines, they all intersect and converge in central London. So yeah. The next feature is high rent. So because it's very close to the central business district, the rent here for retail and office space will be really high. The next feature is traffic restrictions on vehicles. And this is because in order to increase functionality of the central core, some governments may impose taxes or restrictions on the amount of vehicles that can enter the central core, because if there are too many vehicles in the central core, it may cause traffic congestion. So traffic restrictions can help to reduce that. And finally, there are high-rise buildings. So these are where your office buildings are, and they are usually high-rise. So next you need to know about the inner city. So one feature is our dormitories for industrial workers, and this is because within the inner city it's primarily composed of industrial parks. And this leads me on to my next point, which is that there are many industrial estates in this inner city. There's also a lack of green space, such as like parks or gardens, etc. And this is because a lot of the land is used for factories and industrial warehouses, which are used to manufacture goods. Um, the housing in this area, if there are any, are also terraced and also lacks quality. And finally, in this area, there may be a high population density, and this is because people may want to live near the industrial parks. So therefore, if they live closer to it, then they'll need less time to commute to them. So the next land zone we're going to look at is the suburban ring. So this area is primarily composed of residential estates. And these housing are semi-detached, and they also includes gardens. And there's also more greenery embedded within this part of the city. So there's more parks and tree-lined avenues, etc. And the population density is lower than in the inner city. And finally, you may still find small retail parks here with small shopping centers for necessities such as like groceries, food, water, etc. So the next and the final land use you need to know is the rural urban fringe. So in this area, housing is more spread out. There's also a lack of public services due to the low population of people living in these areas. There also may be farms which could be used for agriculture, which generates income for the family that owns that farm. There also may be leisure facilities, so this could include golf courses or like lodges that you can stay in for a staycation, etc. And it also has large houses here with gardens, because there's a lot of space to build these houses, and therefore the quality of these houses can be improved. So now we're going to be looking at the reasons for urban sprawl, and before we go into that, you need to know that urban sprawl is the rapid expansion of cities and towns. Alright, so the reason for urban sprawls is that there are more job opportunities. So because there are more job opportunities, people are more likely to migrate to urban areas so that they can earn income. There's also a better provision of services, and this is because since there are more people living in urban areas, the demand for healthcare and education will be higher, and therefore the provision of these services is likely to be quite high. There's also a lack of investment into rural areas. Because there's a lack of investment into maybe like healthcare, education, and maybe retail parks and industrial centers in the rural areas, um, people will be more likely to migrate to urban areas for a better quality of life. And another factor is that primary sector is becoming mechanized. So an example of this would be in agriculture, where tractors and machines are used to plow the fields and to harvest the crops. So that means that people are no longer needed in these fields, and therefore they would likely move to urban areas to look for a job. And finally, there may be higher wages in urban areas, so this will encourage more people to migrate to urban areas. Okay, so now we're going to look at the problems that all these factors that we talked about here cause in urban areas. So one factor is overcrowding and congestion. And this is because when people migrate to urban areas, there may be a lack of space for people to live in housing. So this could lead to people sharing houses, and also public spaces may also be over congested with people. So this could have like a negative impact and could also increase noise pollution. There is also increased job competition, and this is because there are more people applying for the same job. So this could also increase unemployment within urban areas because it's quite hard to find a job. Another factor is increased crime. And this is because in urban areas there are generally more people, and therefore there may be more pickpocketers or those kind of people within the population. So this will likely increase crime. And there may be also pollution levels will start to increase. So this could be in the form of air, sound, or water pollution. And finally, there may be the development of squatter settlements. Squatter settlements. And we're going to go into this in more detail, but all you need to know for now are squatter settlements are residential areas that are developed without legal claims by the residents. So another word could be a slum, but the geographic term for slums are squatter settlements. So there are some solutions to solve the problems above in urban areas. So for example, one solution could be to tax cars. And this could discourage people from driving their cars into urban areas, so therefore they're more likely to take public transport. And this can also reduce traffic congestion as well as carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. Another solution is to use solar panels. And this is because it generates renewable energy, which is more green compared to using fossil fuels, which are non-replenishable. You could also embed greenery into the infrastructure. So this means maybe rooftop gardens, or there could be vertical farming, and this can also maintain urban ecology and conservation in urban areas. So you could also include smoke-free zones in urban areas, and this is likely to reduce the health effects on people and could discourage them from smoking. And it can also lead to less greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. Um, and another solution is pedestrianization. And what this means is building pedestrian pathways to encourage walking and cycling and to discourage car use so that the city promotes more green mobility. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at squatter settlements. And as I said about squatters, settlements are residential areas that are developed without legal claims. Alright, so all you need to know for the squatter settlements are the characteristics of them. So one characteristic is degraded water quality, and this is because sewage pipes may be open and therefore a lot of contaminants can infect the water, and it can also increase the transmission of waterborne diseases like cholera. There's also a lack of sanitation in these areas. These areas may also be overcrowded, so this also enhances the spread of diseases in these areas. And in these areas, houses are made of poor quality materials, such as thin sheets of wood. Poor quality materials. And finally, I already mentioned this in the first part, but there are open sewage pipes which could decrease hygiene in these areas. Okay, so that's all you need to know for settlements, and I hope you found this video useful, and see you soon.